so you can hear directly from us what the proposed changes are, what is going on, and why we are moving in this direction. So today I have the pleasure of having with us Joisa Alvarez, who is our new undergraduate representative, and Isaac Rodriguez, who is our new board chair. And I'm super excited about both of them. Joisa reminds me of me when I was undergraduate student rep. She's coming in with questions. She's not scared of the role or the job, so that's awesome. And Isaac, I think, represents in many ways the kind of leader that we are wanting to build and nurture in the organization. He is a young professional, well, not so young, but he is in the midst of having babies. And a lot of our members leave when they are going through that in life, but that is when Isaac decided to double down. So, in so many ways, I think that this is a great representation of where the organization is and where we're going. So, welcome, and let's get to it. The topic for us today is nominations or elections, which creates stronger boards. So, Joisa, I know you have questions. So maybe we start with you and then we go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we could just start with sort of understanding the difference of what those two mean, I think would be important to sort of engage our members because it's a tricky concept, especially when trying to run this organization, which we love so dearly. So I don't know if either of you could speak to that.
How about if Joyce, if you wanted to talk about your experience with the election from a student side and what you went through there, and then I'll hop over and talk about the board elections and nomination side.
Yeah. So my interest came from speaking with Maria, who was the previous undergraduate representative, and I had the pleasure of serving with her on Region 2 during her time as RSR. And I just saw her blossom and, progress into her NBOD role as undergraduate representative. And I was at a point in time where I come from a very diverse, like unique undergraduate experience, and I thought to myself, like, am I eligible to run considering my unique path, like 8 years pursuing my undergrad degree, have like transferring schools and whatnot. So I was like, do I need to be traditional in order to run for a role like this? And after speaking with Maria and a couple others in our SHIP community, they really encouraged me to run. And so I submitted the form and I just waited patiently to hear back if I had the opportunity to run and begin my campaign for what was like a month or so. And so I graciously got the email and I was like, okay, I guess this is a sign that I should at least attempt. And so after a month or so of campaigning and reaching out to chapters and whatnot, then it closed and we waited some time to hear the results. And I am very honored to share this role with John Marino. So that was the election process. I think um, it was smooth for me. But I think, it took a lot of time and effort to reach out to these chapters and dedicate, some time to see how can I, project myself in the best way so that people know the intention at which I want to serve in this role. So my experience was great. But I do understand how, people have questions even in running for elections, like I did myself. Like, am I capable? Do I have the credentials? Do I have the proper skill set to run? So yeah, that was my experience.
That's helpful. Thank you so much for sharing because what really stands out is your passion and your dedication, but
Yep.
also just a little like hesitation, which is very
Mm-hmm.
natural that you're unsure what is coming in the next steps and should I do this? Am I ready for this? Have I built myself up to say yes? So grateful you did because we are very lucky
Thank
to have you on the board. But you're the type of student and professional, not even student, but professional that we would want to attract through any of these processes, right? Whether it's elections or through nominations. So with this topic, it's yes or, but then also how are we getting the best out of the members and others that are non-members that are interested in serving the organization. So as the bylaws are being amended, it's looking at transitioning from elections to nominations. So just taken on the board side as an example, I was an appointed board member because I filled a skill gap that the board needed. They wanted somebody that I was the only PhD on the board too, so I had higher higher degree, and from a technical standpoint, I'm also an entrepreneur. That's an engineer entrepreneur. And now I'm glad we have more than me on the board. Francesca and I got on at the same time, which was exciting. And it's really about understanding, how can we put all of the organization's purpose before the organization, and being able to attract people that we wouldn't normally have attracted before. So in this nominations transition, it's looking at who do we think is the most kind of qualified, right? Yes, but also has the passion, because we want to marry both. If you have only passion, or if you're only qualified with no passion, it's not going to work. So the point of the nominations is that if you feel like somebody could serve in that role, then you nominate them. Or if you feel like you want to serve in that role and you have that skill set and you know you have that passion, you can nominate yourself. And then it would go through an interview process and be able to then, see if you're eligible for that position. So it's a change for the organization, but I would say it's a change that is not new to corporations, to other nonprofits. There's a lot of skill gap finding out there, but if you just try to get somebody with financial or legal background that don't have any passion or any type of experience with who we serve, then it's going to be a little harder to try to recruit them. So the whole point is trying to get away from all the campaigning as well, because like you said, it's very time consuming. So if I had to make a choice today that you would focus on academics or focus on campaigning, I'm going to be like, please focus on academics. Do not focus on campaigning. But can we still get you a pipeline to be able to serve in that leadership position? And that's what the nomination still does. So it would eliminate that time consuming part, but then be able to still have that same outcome of you're eligible to be, serving on a leadership position. So different, but kind of the same in the sense that you can bring whoever you would want to bring up to that opportunity to serve.
I want to focus a little bit more, kind of dial in on skill gap and how the board is being so much more intentional about having certain skill sets. And so, for example, Isaac and I are both entrepreneurs. We came into the board. Immediately, we're starting having conversations about what does it look like to build an entrepreneur ecosystem within the organization. How can we make that happen? I've had those conversations outside the board, but it is when you're in the board having those conversations that you're able to move the dial. And now entrepreneurship is an integral part of our strategic plan. So had we gone through the election process and not gotten elected, then the board wouldn't have the kind of expertise needed to actually move the strategic plan in the direction that we needed to move it. It would be something that would be happening on the outside in the peripherals, but not something that would be impacting strategy. So when we think about high performing boards, not just boards, right, but a high performing board, I think that's where this becomes even more crucial, because you want to have the skills in order to
Yes.
move the organization in the way that you want to move it. Did you want to add something, Isaac?
Yeah,
Like,
just exactly to
yes.
summarize what I heard you say was basically, nominations let you recruit against the needs for
Mm-hmm.
that board or for that regional group, and then instead of hoping that someone on the ballot fits that need, because you could have all engineers on the ballot, and then who's the finance, who's the thinker, the entrepreneur, who's the legal, right? So that really does help. And then also just to note that many may not know that we already have a pretty robust nominations process. So this isn't something that we're building as we go and then we'll test it. I came through this process 2 years ago where the board
Mm-hmm.
identified gaps And then I was recruited based on those gaps. I submitted a full application. Francesca, I'm speaking for you too, because we did the same exact thing. We filled a full application.
Same thing.
We had interviews, maybe 2 rounds of interviews, right? Going back and forth. And then if we get that call, like, okay, there's interest, then we go to the board meeting and formally get appointed to the board. So that is a pretty robust process that we have already that we would just be expanding out to the regions and then fully to the board.
I do have a question, maybe
Yeah.
from what members might be thinking, or even, people within all regions of how do you know what the needs are for regional leaders, and how will we be exploring that nomination process for the regions?
Sure. So I'll take that one. The regions are going to create their own requirements. The nominations committee manages the process, and they're going to help find the right fit. Now, just like when you're going to be part of the board does the interviewing. Well, the regional leadership team is the one that is going to be selecting who they want. And so you create your requisition, let's say, right? Like we need someone that, I don't know, does backflips and splits. Isaac might be on that group. um, uh, and the nominations committee simply manages the process of receiving the nominations, comparing it against the skill set that's needed, presenting it to the regional team for selection, and then going from there.
And who is that regional team? Like, who will be deciding what the needs are for the region?
So, great question. The regional team is changing titles, and I'll explain why the title needs to change at this point in time. Regional vice president has traditionally or historically in the past, it was a role for someone that sat on the board. We had a chairman and 7 regional vice presidents. And so that is, I'm going to say, like a lingering role that has not found a home and has been sort of in the ether. And we wanted to create a new structure and change the name so that there wouldn't be confusion as to what that is. And so the title RVP is going away. And now we're going to have the regional council. And that regional council is going to have a leader. And the region is the one that we choose. And so to start, it'll be the chapters that will be selecting that first regional council for that doesn't have a regional council. And then from then on, it's that process that we have just described. Does that answer the question?
Yes. Now I have another follow-up question. I'm sorry.
Fantastic.
So what are the
Bring
roles
it.
within what are the roles within that regional council? Like, since you're mentioning that the, well-known RVP role would be removed in the sense. So what would be those positions within the council that people would be aware of, and you could say running for, to represent or make the decisions of the entire region?
Did you want me to take that one?
Ag?
Yeah.
I can. Okay.
I can do it. Sure.
Go for it.
It's whatever the needs of the region are. So it does not have to be one RGR per region, one RSR per region. If and some regions have shifting as directors, some regions have maybe some pre-college, right? So whatever the needs of the region are, they can create those positions based on the needs of that specific region. So the titles are maybe officially going away, but I mean, I guess those titles could potentially come back if they wanted to call themselves that, then they could in that sense. But the whole point is that there's no requirement coming down from the top that you have to have these positions in that's your regional leadership. The point is you have this regional council that is developed regionally, and those positions are going to differ region to region just based on the needs.
Okay. So I guess in similarly to NVOD, I would say there are like I think we're unique as an organization, as we discussed a few months back, that we have the input of an undergraduate to sort of feed in this, fresh perspective, not only into life, but into, leadership and ship experience as a whole. From a student's perspective, how can we guarantee that, the perspectives within the region remain, you could say balanced, or that sure the needs are being met for the region, but we're also making sure that there are no groups or different demographics within each region that are left out or not being considered during regional decisions.
I want to make sure I understand your question. So I'm going to phrase it differently and you tell me if I'm on the right path. Mm-hmm. Is this a question of representation versus what?
I guess this is a question of representation, just like how, making decisions, we want to maximize the diverse input in order to make the best decision, most considerate decision, because our demographic is very unique and has a lot of inputs. So how do we make sure that these inputs are well-rounded in the sense that we're meeting at least the critical points of SHIP as an organization in making these decisions as a region, like in these regional councils?
Mm-hmm. Let me ask this question. I will answer it, but I want to hear this first. How are we doing that through elections now?
I guess, in the sense we're meeting the demographic in elections at the moment we have the regional student representative, we have the regional graduate representative. Some regions have SHPTinas, that covers the Latina, Latinx region of our nation. We have an RVP, which is typically a professional who has been in industry for a certain amount of years. I would say the elections or the roles that we have right now, they meet the majority of the needs or the people that are within SHIP. So that's my only question, I guess, like how can we guarantee that we're still having those, each a very unique experience, an RVP, someone who's specifically dedicated to SHPTinas, RSR and whatnot, they're all, providing their, I would say, important perspective into making decisions for the region. How do we maintain that for nominations for councils? I don't know.
So yeah, I think that what Isaac was saying earlier is the answer to that. And it's the region has to decide how they're going to structure themselves for the most efficiency and efficacy, right? And so what that means is today we require per bylaws. In the bylaws, it says you must have a student rep. You must have, one moment. You must have a regional VP. You must have a graduate student rep, right? So by saying that um, the way it sits, in our bylaws today, you must have at least these. What we are saying is actually, region, how do you want to structure yourself? Do you need these or do you need other titles? How would you, if you were free to create the right structure for your region, what would that be? And so I think that this approach actually gives you even more nuance over that representation. Okay. And you would have the chance to select the best skilled person to represent that group because of their experience, because of who they are, for whatever, the criteria is that you need. So if you're wanting someone to represent junior chapters, you can decide, should that be a teacher? Should it be a student? Should it be a school principal? What kind of representation do we need to effectively reach our goals in this region, for that audience? instead of the board saying, well, it must be a high school principal, right? The region can say, okay, we're going to have a junior chapter representative, but it's going to be actually a math teacher. That's what we want,
Mm.
right?
Okay,
So
Yeah, I
that
think
makes sense.
it also goes back to the skill gaps too. So each region is going to have its unique skill requirements, and I don't see a student perspective is always going to be needed. Like a graduate student perspective is always going to be needed. I'm just like, this is just me personally, right? Like thinking of all the regions, you're going to want a professional expect, at least those three are the core membership as it stands today. And then like a junior, like representative, sure. So I think those are the guarantees, and then it's what else do we need to include in here to make our region function the best. So it will be again like Francesca mentioned, and thank you for asking these questions because you are not the only one that has them. But just like the region itself is going to have this conversation. So it's hard for us to answer now because it's so region specific. But once the region gets together, the chapter leaders, right, get together with the regional leaders, your regional leader like group, and start forming that council together. Like that's the autonomy that you have as a region to build that up. And then the first thing that you will be asking is just what are the skill gaps? Like what are the biggest thing? Who's your biggest population that you serve? What's the impact that you're having? And then who do you need in leadership to make sure that impact is multiplied? And then that's where the different leadership positions start coming out. But to your point, there are some core, I will call them roles and perspectives that
Mhm.
are likely going to be very consistent throughout the
Mhm.
regions, and then it's a la carte otherwise.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, the different areas where SHIP is really trying to dive in and serve the needs of, maybe the smaller communities, like community college students. Like, how do we guarantee, like, for example, California that has so many community colleges, I can't even tell you the
Yeah.
number. How do we guarantee that we're still, meeting those needs and we have a voice that aligns to that population, and that demographic? And of course, there's the other perspective of Latinas who are going through the workplace and have certain necessities and needs as they're going through life, and if whether or not they want to have a family and pursue that avenue. So I think to your point, to add it, it could provide a further, maybe, like, I understand you're saying skill set, but possibly open the doors a bit more as to, hey, like, we're a state that has a very large community college
Yeah.
population. We need that perspective to further
Yeah.
understand
And
how
that'll
to meet that
be,
need.
and let's say you're a
Mhm.
chapter leader at a community college and you're just like, there are 20 other colleges like me here in that formation of the regional council, like that's where you would say, we need that representation here. It's not, it's the approval won't come from like the senior leadership staff or the NBOD. Like they're not we're not approving
Mm,
those positions. It's more approving of the regional structure in the council, but the positions themselves come from the chapter leader conversations when the formation happens. So if the bylaws pass, then I'm just getting back into I'm just getting into the chair role, so I'm still learning a little bit more. But then I would envision, just from a process standpoint, it's conversations around what those regional councils are starting to look like. So then you start involving all the chapter presidents in the region. The regional leadership is coordinating all of this, and then together, each region is basically submitting a proposal of what the regional council looks like. And then those conversations as NBOD, we're likely not in there unless we're in that region and we want to be part of it. But we're not going to be in there saying to add this position or not. So it's really going to be generated by those who have that voice already in
mm,
there in specific regions. So that is just a good point to reiterate, to encourage those who
Mhm.
are in that position to make sure that your voice is heard and that you feel represented in the regional council, because this isn't coming from the top down, not even from like the bottom up. It's coming from all around. Like we're trying to get inputs from everywhere. And at the end of the regional council creation, everyone should feel like they have representation on that
mm,
council because it was developed by the chapter leaders to build it up. So that's what excites me the most, is it's hard to explain unless you start going through those tangible examples in that process. But that's how I would see it developing over the next year as a high level way to form those individual needs, the region needs.
And here is where coming back to high performing boards, and with this, we'll be wrapping up this episode, but long term, what we're building is a leadership pipeline because we are strengthening regions by developing even better leaders and a better leadership process. And now from those regions could come the next board members, right? But now we have actual layers of training and opportunity to better understand how a nonprofit works, how SHIP works. And then when you get into any of that, whether you're at the chapter level, the region level, or at the board level, you will have developed the skill set needed. And when it's the time to serve on the board, then you would have had that experience along the way. So that might not be something we see immediately, but
Hmm.
that's where, from a strategy standpoint, which is what the board does, we need to be 5 years out, 10 years out, and we're building systems and processes that will get us where we want to be in the long term, not just immediately.
Yeah, that's a
So,
topic I'll close on as well, is just that the nomination process can help drive that succession planning rather than someone else just got elected to the position. I wasn't really planning on that, and everyone's scrambling and trying to react, and then but then they're going to be gone, and it's a plan. There's an intention behind it. You are identifying the skill gaps. You're bringing on the people that one have that passion to be developed, to have the skill set to do that. And they don't have the skill set, do they have the want? Do they have the drive to be able to like build that skill set over the years? And then succession planning. So to
mhm.
Francesca's point, we're thinking years and years ahead so that there is not a reactive scramble every year when you have a change of leadership, but there's intentionality behind a transition so that we can ensure the health of the organization years to come.
All
Awesome. Well,
right.
thank you.
That's the perfect ending. Yes, thank you for all the questions, Jolisa. That was perfect. All right, everyone,
Anytime.
there's more coming, so stay tuned and keep coming back.
Love it.
And we stop.